What I'd love to share with you is our context. So to start off with, I'm from the University of Chester. I'm the head of digital education there, and I work within the Centre for Academic Innovation and Development. Um, our centre has been very, very involved in the university's general approach to AI. Our broader AI approach is that we are cautiously, responsibly, and transparently embracing generative AI. We know that we can't ignore it. It's irresponsible to ignore it because our students are going to be using it when they get out into the rest of life, and they're using it whether or not we say they should. So it's really down to us to be in tune with what we're supposed to do here. Um, we really want to emphasize that it's important that we're responsible and ethical about it from both a human perspective and from a sustainability of planet perspective. So for context, the University of Chester is based in the northwest of England. We have about 15,000 students and approximately 700 academic staff and a few more professional services staff than that. We picked up TeacherMatic as part of the Jisc higher education pilot. So we were one of those lucky 8 institutions that got to be part of that experience. We've had approximately 65 highly engaged users of the tool. And it's worth noting that TeacherMatic is one of very, very few AI tools. It was actually our first approved AI tool, and it was critical in that position as the first tool that we approved to our approval process. So many thanks to Peter and to TeacherMatic as we undertook things like our data protection impact assessment, thinking about how our information security team and our data protection team went through the process of evaluating an AI tool. I can highly recommend, if you have any questions, the TeacherMatic team are fantastic at supporting you through that. And that's actually formed the basis for how we think about AI tools, because we've got a standard that we can now measure things against. We know what responsible data handling looks like because we've seen it here. In terms of how we want to have our colleagues use TeacherMatic, as has been referenced a few times today, that keeping the human in the loop is really, really critical. So at no point do we want people to be creating content and just uploading it straight onto our virtual learning environment or sharing it direct in classroom without reviewing. But that's the same for every single AI tool. So that's not unique to a TeacherMatic specific approach. What's really wonderful about our TeacherMatic experience has been it's been a really supportive environment for people who might have been a bit skeptical or a bit scared of using generative AI. So the fact that there are steps to the prompts, that thinking about how to prompt well is taken out. Firstly, it makes it easier to do from a learning how to use Gen AI perspective, but it also makes it potentially more sustainable because you're not having to do quite as many iterative prompts through another AI engine. So that makes it slightly better for the planet. The University of Chester, we've found the platform very user-friendly. We've also found colleagues from TeacherMatic fabulous to talk about particular ideas that we've had. So things like when we started using the rubric tool, creating rubrics takes a very long time if you're doing it step by step. Creating a rubric with AI takes much less time and is much less stressful, and then you can fine tune it afterwards. When I suggested to my colleagues that they use this tool, they said, but how does it work? It won't just go automatically into Turnitin for me, will it? And for those of you that are familiar with Turnitin, you can export a CSV template and then re-import it once you've populated it. And TeacherMatic was fantastic because they actually adapted the Turnitin or the rubric generator so that it exported a CSV. So that cut down a step for my colleagues, and you cannot imagine how enthusiastic they were after that. TeacherMatic's also played a really important role in our curriculum design work that we've done. So we've had, at the University of Chester, we're doing a really large-scale curriculum change at the moment. It's got everything from modules being taught at different credit weightings to how they've been taught before, to entirely new modules, to new approaches being taken to things like assessment. And I'm sure you'll agree with this, colleagues, wherever they are, are finding that they have to do a lot more with a lot less time, and just the sheer scope of change that people are facing can be quite overwhelming. So we brought TeacherMatic into our design sessions that we ran so that colleagues could use it essentially as a critique partner and a critical friend and a co-developer to maybe rewrite some learning outcomes and refresh them, add a little bit of extra joy to that process of doing that curriculum redesign. On a very practical note, that we have TeacherMatic as an approved tool means that people are far less likely to go out and find their own special tool that might or might not meet with the data protection officer's approval. So that we've kind of got a centralized space where people can come and do a bit of experimental work safely is very, very important. I really liked hearing about how your colleagues have adopted it and how you've made it stick. I also thought in prep for this, I was thinking about how we've made it stick for our users. Must say we've had quite a lot of demand beyond academic users, which has been fantastic to see that we've got, for example, some colleagues from the Central Secretariat who are very interested in using some of the admin tools. So we've had to kind of manage our demand, which has been a great problem to have. How we've made it stick for our users, we started in the pilot last year. We've created a Microsoft Teams channel site for all of our TeacherMatic users. So when they get allocated a license, they also get added to this team. That's been really rich because it's been peer-to-peer learning. And it means that if people are getting stuck or struggling, they can ask anyone in that group, and there are lots of people with enough experience to test it out. We hosted a few TeacherMatic tea time sessions, which sounds a little bit silly, but it was wonderful because it was an informal half-hour session once a month for several months in a row that people could drop in, have a discussion, find out what there was that was new, find out about new generators that their colleagues had been trying, share some of their practice. So that as much as I couldn't offer our colleagues an actual cup of tea because this was all done online, that was reflected as a very good community builder around this particular tool. Then probably the thing that I was most pleased about in terms of our sort of rollout plan, we had a look at all the generators out there, and this was back in the beginning. The generator list has got much longer now. We picked out a few generators that we thought had a lot of potential for how people might improve their working, but they were the generators that they might not think to check. So things like the rubric generator everyone wanted to know about that one. Everyone wanted to know how quickly they could construct multiple choice quizzes. But for example, let's just scroll down the list of generators. People might not necessarily have explored a generator that had a name that they weren't familiar with. So at the University of Chester, we don't use the phrase scheme of work, but that is one of the best generators in the whole of TeacherMatic. So I actually encourage people to step outside their comfort zone by setting a weekly challenge. So each week they were told, your task this week is to go and try and use this generator, post the outputs and give us a little bit of feedback about how you found the outputs and what you need to do to develop it, to take it into your classroom spaces. And that was a 6-month series, and it was really fantastic. We had great engagement. I was really interested that the colleagues from Plymouth referenced psychology. Our psychology team has also been really interested in really productive members of our TeacherMatic community. So I wonder if there's just something about psychologists. And Peter, am I correct in thinking that you were also a psychologist, a psychology lecturer?
I am indeed a psychologist. Yeah, that was I used to teach.
There you go. So maybe it's just psychologists that are the best colleagues for TeacherMatic, but everyone should be able to use it very well. Yeah, so our weekly challenges we ran that for 6 months. I'm scrolling down the list of challenges, and it goes from everything from the debate tool to plenary sessions to ask an expert to the glossary tool, which for some subjects where the content is really technical, that's really helpful to students and takes a long time. And I think what it does, what that glossary tool does, is that it stops you forgetting how much you don't know when you start a subject. Because I think that that's quite something that, or something I certainly need to remind myself when I'm teaching a subject to newbies. I've taken the jargon for granted in a lot of cases. And then last in how we've made it stick for our users, a very critical part of that is modeling responsible acknowledged use wherever possible. So that means that me as the head of digital education, my team members, our senior learning technologists, our AI and education working group lead, our center lead for the academic innovation, she's a dean, everyone, where they've used TeacherMatic in their presentations, not just for students, but for other colleagues, we say, this is the tool that we've used to partially generate this, and this is how we've taken the initial output and improved it. And that transparency, I think it frees people up from thinking that using AI is somehow cheating, which is still something I'm hearing colleagues going, it's like, oh, am I not cheating if I use a tool to help generate my PowerPoints? Or am I not cheating if I don't spend hours and hours and hours writing multiple choice questions where you write the same distracted stem 15 different times because you've got to have, it's just very time consuming to do that. And it puts the lecturer back into a place where their expertise as their academic judgment and their expertise is the core. So I think having us being able to model where we found TeacherMatic particularly useful has been important in enhancing people's desire to use it as one of the tools in their toolbox. I think that the role in our curriculum design project, so we did institution-wide curriculum redesign, and being able to unstick design conversations by opening up TeacherMatic, bringing it over to the desk and say, just describe to me the problem that you're having. And even in the chat with TeacherMatic, the very, very simple generator, you just be able to unstick conversations by helping people have that experience a little bit differently. So I can see, I've opened up our dashboard and I can see where the spikes of engagement with TeacherMatic have been across the institution. And they align very, very strongly with particular phases in our design sprint process, which means that that's clearly been a place where people have found it very useful. And we definitely had a spike around the start of this academic year when colleagues were creating new content for the first time. And then yet another spike come January this year where people started being a little bit more exploratory. So seeing that people are actually embedding it in their practice is hugely encouraging to me. I know we had a conversation with Peter and Riza at DigiFest about what it might look like to have whole institution TeacherMatic. And I think that there's a lot of scope, particularly on I'm loving the look of all the IQA content because I've spent a good deal of time doing that myself in the recent past. So I'm looking forward to that whole institution approach where it's not just about creating content to save teachers a few hours in one place, but it can be really strategically used. I realize I whistled through that, and maybe if I'd had slides, I would have talked a bit slower, but I just wanted to have the conversation about what had worked for us. I really like the sound of the implementation guide because I think that's going to be supportive for colleagues who haven't yet rolled it out. But I also just want to give the TeacherMatic colleagues on the call a big shout out for being so willing to be collaborators and co-designers when we bring our ideas to you. I think that makes a real difference to us.